Well, the
If we can
Kandakis
make
family
a
was
connection.
Vasaras,
Vasaras.
just outside of Sparta.
Yes, yes, I know.
And the Koutourakis family, my mom's family, was from Crete, Iraq, from the Archanis section of Heraklion. So call
Yes.
it the West Roxbury of
Yes.
Heraklion.
Okay.
So that's where my
But,
family's from. But they knew each other from the cathedral. That's how they met.
And Kondakis was the original name. You didn't have to change it or anything.
It's Kondakis. It's
Kondakis, yes.
right there. Yeah,
Yeah, it is.
it's very close. I mean,
So your parents were married here,
and born
Yes.
here.
born here.
My
And-
grandparents came from Greece.
Oh, your grandparents. And what did they do, your grandparents, when they moved here?
Go ahead. What did
Well,
they do?
Well, PK, Peter Kandakis,
Yes.
came here and he didn't know a whole lot, but he
Yes.
knew produce.
Yes.
He scrounged up a few bucks, and I don't know how he got it, to get a push cart. And he bought and sold produce in the neighborhoods of Boston. What he did was he went to the what is now the Quincy Market,
Yes.
and would buy from the wholesalers.
Yes.
At first they said it was oranges and lemons, and he would fill his cart up with oranges and lemons, whatever he could afford to buy, and he would peddle them in the streets of where he knew people lived.
And what year about? What year?
That was
of-
1900.
1900. Oh, this is.
He came in
Yeah, yeah.
1899, and he started. Well, officially started the company in 1900, but he may have actually been started.
This is a
peddling.
company that you still have.
Yes.
Wonderful. Oh, this is great.
Yes.
And then your parents met at the cathedral.
As far as I know,
Yes,
yes. I don't
okay.
know exactly what kind
Well,
of an event. They're from the
You know,
cathedral. They knew each other.
The families knew
each
one
other
another,
from the
but mom
cathedral.
and dad didn't date until they were.
Well,
Dad was 30.
Dad was in his 30s.
Back from the,
Mom
you
was
know-
in his late 20s. Not in her late 20s.
Yeah, mom was.
Mom was going to be an
20s.
old maid.
Mom
At those-
was-
and how did the family get turned on to the new church possibility?
You know, I don't know
know.
exactly, other than the original, the genesis of
Yes,
the
yes.
idea is Dr. Deaconess.
Deaconess and
More than anybody else, maybe
Bassett.
Mr. Bassett
Yes,
also.
they got together. And
Right,
I get
right,
that,
and they recruited people who they knew, and like Dr. Deaconess was also someone who I believe who was at the cathedral. So it wasn't
Correct.
like they didn't know each other. So when they said, "Hey, you know,
Right.
we should do this," and there were a number of meetings at his house, maybe at
Right.
my
Yes.
dad's house, Mr. Anton's house.
Yeah.
You know, and that's how it just all came together. I
Yeah.
mean, maybe the Calluses too, for all I know. He was the legal expert that they had
Yes,
at the time.
yes.
There were, and those families, to this day, we really have nice relationships with.
Well, I'd say so. This is the group that started
Yeah,
it all.
yeah.
And so
And
here
there
we-
are others, unfortunately, who we've lost touch with. I mean, who just aren't around.
So here we are in 1959 at this cute little Methodist church, very small. The basement was in so-so condition. Irene says we had to move the carpets and the furniture so the holes will not show on the floor, and
believe that.
people's shoes are going to be
In
whatever.
the church itself. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
the
just
base-
remember.
I don't know.
In the basement was tile.
The basement was
Yes.
tile.
As
but
far
the,
as
the,
I
the church,
knew.
the church. I remember the floorboards creaking, going up the stairs.
But it was a red carpet.
Correct.
It was a red carpet
Yeah.
in the church. Now that may have been something that we put in. I don't know. Could be.
And
It was
then
it was
the
a small stage
iconostasis
there.
situation that your father with
With others,
Macros,
they
yes.
got it from
Sanford, yes.
from Connecticut. Yeah.
And so
That's right.
all that has been brought up by other parishioners. It sounds like a fabulous situation, though. Imagine how closely they all had to work. They were
Yeah.
excited about this new church. It would
They
do anything they
were.
could.
And
We help.
you know, people. I mean, people were always over the house among those in those early days. People were always over the house. It seemed like always church people were over the house. I
Right.
mean, friends. Stephen's godparents are among the founders. I mean, that's Nikki Stenaris,
Stenaris,
Stephanie's
Yes,
parents. Are Stephen's godparents.
Custy
Didiscus
And Ruth Didiscus are Steve's godparents
Yeah. from
here.
Yes.
And my sister, let me think. not my sister Joanne. My brother Gregory's godparents are Marion and John Lucas. They're both no longer with us, but again, from one of the early families of St. Demetrius, and we became very close. We grew up as kids together.
Right.
You know, and that's why I think you've got Markins with the Makeresses as being Gumbadi and
Yes.
godparents.
Oh,
I mean, there was a lot of that. There's a lot of
that.
that
It's wonderful.
going on.
in the early
Absolutely.
church. As far as the first years, we're too little to remember
Yeah.
the first years. But one of my early
Yes.
memories is a sad one, sadly. I remember as a kid, and I couldn't have been more than 3, 4, 5 years old. We planted a tree in the, as you came in the driveway, it was opposite to the church, across from the church's driveway, an evergreen tree. And it was in memory of a boy, Arthur Atzeles, who would have been my age. So he would have been 62 now, today,
Yes.
had he lived. And I remember that distinctly, having people dig
What happened to him?
I do not
He
know
had
how
a
he died.
childhood illness and
Oh.
passed. But we don't. I don't.
Okay.
I don't know the.
Yeah, and
I don't know
I
the
you know,
details.
you know, I say to, I hope I have his name right. If Pamela and Melanie Atzeles, and that's not their married names, but if they view this, I hope I have Arthur's name is correct. And I remember that day, and in fact, I believe we moved that tree here, but I
Oh.
couldn't
I don't know
identify.
which
I
one
can't.
it
I
is.
can't identify it
Well,
for you.
I don't know which one it is.
But I'm,
Yes.
I'm reasonably confident that occurred. But that's one of like the very first things. Of course, going to church school.
we had Sunday school in the little schoolhouse
Yeah,
behind the little church house. I mean, the
Yes.
rooms were tiny. They were half the size,
Oh,
a third of the size of this room.
where
okay?
I had church school or Sunday school when Mrs. Anton was my teacher, who
Yes.
you interviewed.
Correct. Teach.
Yes.
Yes.
When she was my teacher, we were downstairs in the basement of the parish house. One stairway, it would be totally illegal today. A narrow stairway
Yeah,
upstairs,
oh,
totally illegal.
Oh, yeah.
Guaranteed it would be illegal.
You in the basement?
Yeah, that was in the basement.
Well, let me tell you
downstairs.
something. By the time I got into that school, we never went in that basement because I don't think I ever went in that basement.
We
so-
were in the basement, and then I can remember going up and snooping around the attic.
Yes.
Going way up in the attic, and then there was even a garage behind the church that you could go and
Yeah, well,
snoop around in as kids. We could run around. It was fun to run around. We had a greensward, and you had the Charles River
The
behind
Charles
you. It
River
was
was
fun
behind
to
us. There
run
was a
around.
fence. There was a fence up against the Charles. So
You couldn't fall in the river. You weren't gonna
you
go in the
couldn't
river.
fall into the river there. But of course, we had all the we had every Father's Day they had we would call it chicken on the Charles. We
Yes.
joke about it now, but that's exactly what it was, and it was
cookout.
They had a cookout with the hibachis going and
Yes.
The grills
the grills and there would hamburgers, hot dogs, and
Mr.
there and
Anton
chicken
was always among the
and it was I remember
setter uppers.
and I remember I was probably, I don't know, maybe 7 or 8. They had a bazaar, and that was a big deal because they had
In
an artist outside. It was in the spring.
Do you remember?
Outside, they had an artist there, and and the
Oh.
artist, I forget
Drew-
which artist it was.
You may.
Okay,
I don't know.
but he drew Joanne.
Oh,
He drew a
really?
picture of Joanne.
That's our
and
sister.
our sister. And I remember, people were just selling trinkets and whatnot. It wasn't any but they were handmade things and whatever. And I have no idea if the church made any money on it or not. But it was one of those to try to get the community
Yes.
together and invite other people from the community. I was probably I don't know, maybe 6 or 7.
I
years
also remember in that church hall, which was famous for having the poles in it, because
Yes.
that was supported the structure of the church above.
Lally columns.
The lally columns.
Right.
The big poles, and kids would go around and around, and I was like, stop doing that all the time during coffee hour. But today we have Nico, who
Yes.
helps us in the kitchen here. Well, back in those days, there was a woman by the name of Josephine. And Josephine was the lady that ran the kitchen. She made the coffee and set up the things for coffee hour, fellowship hour after church. And she was there. I don't know that she came to this community, but she was there, and I'll be darned if I remember the lady's last name. I cannot think
She
of
was
it.
not a you don't remember she was a parishioner?
I don't know if she was a parishioner or not, but maybe if you were to ask, Antons would know.
Okay.
They
I'll
might
bet
know.
anything.
They might know.
But I remember, and then when she passed away, which wasn't that long ago, but it was a while ago, maybe 15, 18 years ago, quite some time ago, that I remember just thinking back and remembering her service to the community
Yes.
back then. But to this day, I'll go in coffee hour and greet our friend Nancy Agris Savage, and I'll say, hi, wife, and she'll say to me, hi, husband. And everybody looks at us like,
Yes.
why? Well, when we were in Greek school back in
Ah.
the 4th grade, we played
I can
we
imagine
played Kyrios και Kyria Myrmidra for the
Myrmidra.
Greek school play. We were
Yes.
Mr. and Mrs. Ant.
And Mr.
So
Mary, yes.
from then on, she's my first wife and I'm her first husband.
Well, that's, don't tell anybody.
And presenting that play
Yes.
on the stage with a baseball cap
Oh,
with pipe cleaners
And I gotta
as
tell
antennae.
you, he needed a cap to be an ant with the
Yes.
pipe cleaners coming out of it.
Yes.
So what did they do? They took a perfectly good Red Sox cap, and I was so upset over it
Oh.
because they took the B off the front of the
Oh.
cap. I mean, this was
Yes.
this was defiling a Red Sox
Exactly,
cap,
exactly.
and put the pipe cleaners in the
Holes.
holes that come through to make
That's a great
the
story.
ant cap
Yeah.
for Peter, and it's one of those crazy things that you just remember as a kid. You know?
Go
Yes.
ahead, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Remember
You can't listen.
very well when we were when we would go to church on Sundays, they would have on the right, immediately in front of the choir, they'd have rows of all the Sunday school children lined up, and then Mr. Savas would come and we would sing many of the responses, and we would also sing Des Vias. I don't know if we did Ius of those, but we definitely did Des Vias. And the whole church school would participate in singing that now, some more than others. But we had a good choir from day one. Mom sang in the choir
Oh, yeah.
at the beginning.
And Sabas apparently was excellent.
Savas was very
he was-
demanding.
He was tremendous.
He was a good director,
good
very
director.
very
He was
demanding.
Then you got Father Gallows,
In
Right.
1965.
he was-
Right.
and he's the one that I really remember. I don't
Of course,
remember-
that's what we really remember.
I don't
yes.
remember these other
And
priests.
he and Manicus began to stabilize the church, and then it became
Right.
very
He-
big.
Yeah, he stabilized it. Of course, it came here with him still as priest until 1975, and I remember being so disappointed that he was leaving us
Oh,
in
yeah.
1975. And of course, by then I was out of high school. I graduated in 74, and here was this man that I had served in
Yes.
altar with for many years, and to lose him was a challenge for me at that age. But Father Nicmanicus was fabulous. So I
What do
mean,
you think that made this parish special? Other than the fact that you were here, I get it, but as you get to know other parishes and other priests or whatever, so what made the St.
I don't know,
Demetrius?
the whole closeness of the community. There's a whole sense of everybody in it together
I
to
think
to
at that
make
time,
it work.
back then on
beginning,
Washington
yes.
Street,
Yes.
okay, in Newton, where we were, there was just a sense of all everybody was all in.
And you did whatever.
Yeah.
If you had to
And-
scrub the floors, you scrubbed them. If you had to sweep, you swept them.
You swept, you set up, you cleaned up. You there wasn't a question as to whether you were going to pitch in or not. You
You
just did. And I would hope that all of their their parents and their families would find what it is, what that button is to push to get these kids, I call them kids because
Yeah.
to me they are,
Yeah.
kids and young adults involved, because there's something here for everyone. You know, whether you have a young family, whether you're just starting out, whether you're single, and that individual has something to give us and make us all better and stronger.
On Holy Monday, Stephen and I would serve, and we sang in junior choir.
Yeah.
Presbytera Anna Gallos had a junior choir, and we sang in it. And she taught us the big troparia of the Holy Sunday, Holy Palm Sunday evening,
Yes,
Monday
Monday
evening,
evening.
Tuesday evening, and Father Gallos knew that we knew it. So when it came time to sing those on the Holy Monday night,
Yes.
he insisted that we sing with him.
In the altar.
In the altar.
We were singing with
So
Father
we were singing with Father George
Which is
in the
fabulous.
altar.
In the altar.
Yeah, in the altar at the old church, and there'd be 3 people in the congregation: the psalty, my dad, and my Uncle George would come because he knew that we were serving in the altar and wanted to hear us. So that was back.
There wasn't
But
too
not-
many. There weren't
not-
too many people there.
Yeah, there weren't.
But
on those
On Holy
services.
Monday night, no one went.
But this
Nobody
is a
went.
great story that you were sitting with the priest on Monday night, Holy Monday.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah, we served on Holy Monday night all
Wow.
the years that we served in the altar. Actually,
Yeah.
I mean, we served other nights
and-
too, but that was you only needed
That was special.
one gospel reading, and I remember him chanting the gospel. Oh my goodness! Woe unto you, scribes, Pharisees, and hypocrites!
Yes.
That's the altar. That's the reading on Holy Monday evening, but he would say it in Greek. The whole thing was read in Greek, and you know it's a long, relatively speaking,
Yes.
for a 12, 13-year-old, or 10-year-old kid up there, and I'd be waiting to hear. Way Pharisee hypocrite, or whatever it is exactly in Greek, but he had so much enthusiasm for it. And the other thing on Holy Thursday when he read the 12 Gospels, and he would come to the point where Jesus cried out to his Father, Eli,
Eli, lama
Eli,
sabachthani."
sabachthani, and he would chant it like in a pleading tone, and it was so moving to hear
yes.
that. Unbelievable.
Well, his
Unbelievable.
services were very emotional, and they
That's
were,
great.
and a lot of his chants, because Presbytera was
A musician.
Oh.
She wrote some of his
That he learned.
responses
That he learned.
Did he have a
He
good
wrote
voice?
he had
Yes,
a beautiful
voice.
and so everything was on key, going back and forth. I remember I don't know if it probably was not a regular Sunday. It was probably during Holy Week or during Lent. And you were up there with Peter Deaconess, and there were only
Yep,
you,
Peter
Peter
Deaconess.
Deaconess,
Yeah, me and Peter
in
Deaconess
the
was my
altar.
captain,
and
yeah.
I was sitting in the in the church, and and I had told you, I said, yeah, I want to be an altar boy, and of course they needed another altar boy, and I was 2 years younger than Peter, and Peter Deaconess said, you could come on up. He had probably asked Father George if, hey, we'll bring another, well, Stevie's in the, Steve's sitting down, and then I was an altar boy from then on. So, I mean, I remember being, however old you were, 9, I was 7. So, and
I think I was older than that, actually. I said I went up
8,
late.
but at any rate, I went in right after you were up there. So, so I remember being called up and put on duty.
Yeah.
But I was ready. I was ready for it because if my brother could do it, I could do it.